After going down 0-3 to the Miami Heat with an exceptionally bad performance in Game 3, Boston has bounced back in the last two games, winning both quite handedly. Both Games 4 and 5 were double-digit wins, where Boston led by upwards of 20 points. And this doesn't just feel like a natural return to the mean, it more so feels like Boston is just alive again. So how did this happen? And why does Boston seemingly insist on digging themselves in a hole at the start of every series they play? Basically, why can't this team just be normal for once? Seriously. Anyone else frustrated by this? Whatever. Roll the intro. The NBA Finals are just a few days away, which makes now the perfect time to check out this video's sponsor, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to play daily fantasy for someone who is new to daily fantasy. It is just you versus the projections. Select 2 to 6 players and pick whether you think they will get more or less of their projected stat. Get them all right and you can win up to 25 times your money. Prize Picks is also running a massive giveaway. Every day during the playoffs and now the finals, one random Prize Picks user will have a chance to become a millionaire. One entry placed after 8 a.m. Eastern will be randomly selected every day to make a 6-pick flex play. Get 4 picks correct and you win $16,000. Get 5 correct, you win $80,000, and get all 6 correct and you will walk away a millionaire. They are also offering a free square heading into the finals to help your chances of winning. Nikola Jokic has to just score 1 point in game 1, which I would say is fairly likely. And what's great for you is that if you have not downloaded Prize Picks already, first-time users who use my code RUSTY will get an instant deposit match up to $100, meaning that if you put $50 in, Prize Picks will give you $50 and so on. So click the link in the description, and once again, use my code RUSTY to get an instant deposit match up to $100. Thank you to Prize Picks for sponsoring the video. First thing I want to say right out of the gate, given that I am making this video, is no, I don't think Boston is actually going to win this series, which shouldn't be a particularly hot take given that no team has ever come back from a 3-0 series, and them winning these 2 games also isn't something that's unprecedented. There have been a handful of series that the team went up 3-0 and it eventually got pushed to 6, and there have been a very select few that have actually been pushed to a game 7. The Dallas Mavericks in 2003 with Steve Nash and Dirk Nowitzki allowed the Portland Trail Blazers to push them to 7 after going up 3-0, as did the Utah Jazz versus the Nuggets in the second round in 1994, and it also happened in the 1951 finals. So it looks like Miami is pulling a real Rochester Royals, if you know what I'm saying. But with all that said, I feel pretty confident that Miami is going to close out this series in Game 6 on their home floor, but also with that said, if they don't, I don't know if they can really win in Boston in Game 7 with the momentum of Boston having just won 3 straight games. So if Miami's going to wake up, it needs to happen in Game 6, and hopefully Gabe Vincent, more than likely being back, will also help them because he's been pivotal in this series. Even though, yeah, I'm still quite confident Miami does close this one out, if I was a Miami Heat fan, I wouldn't be feeling very good right now, I'll say that much. But predictions aside, let's talk about the weird world of the Boston Celtics. So this is quite easily the most frustrating contender I have experienced in the NBA maybe ever, because as mentioned, this team loves to dig themselves into a hole, and the way they do this very much feels predicated on the mental side of the game. I'm specifically referring to the concept of playing down to your competition, believing that you're a better team than the opponent, so you don't go into it with that much energy or that much effort because you just feel like this will naturally ride out the way it's supposed to. Boston's supposed to be better than Miami, so we ain't gotta worry about it too much. This is something that Boston does all the damn time. Every single game 1 of this playoffs thus far on their home floor, Boston has lost. They lost to the Hawks on their home floor, losing to Philly without Joel Embiid, and obviously losing to Miami. It really feels like the Celtics go into every series basically half asleep, and then they need their opponent to smack them awake awake in the first game, and in the case of this Miami Heat series, it took them even longer to wake up. It really seemed like this bad approach would lose them round 2, but luckily for them, James Harden and Joel Embiid are excellent choke artists. Like, for real, I cannot emphasize enough, the Celtics probably shouldn't have even been in this conference finals, but the Sixers were like, hey, we're more incompetent than you, we're gonna lose game 7, don't you worry. A common thing you will see people call the Celtics is unserious, which honestly, I think is the perfect word. This is a roster that is no doubt constructed of the talent required to win a championship, but they often don't seem like they even want to. Half of the time, their defense seems like it just doesn't give a shit. And half of the time, their offense, which has never been a particularly complex offense, but still there was something to it, will just devolve into Jalen and Jason running ISO, or even freaking Marcus Smart running ISO. And it just turns into ugly basketball because there seems to be no deliberateness to what they're doing. Is deliberateness a word? Whatever. It doesn't really seem like they have a tactful game plan that they're actually executing. They're just kind of vibing, and turns out vibes don't result in wins very much. The defense in particular is where Boston can be really unserious, because this defensive core is one of the best defenses I had ever seen last year. In the 2022 playoffs, Boston allowed 110 plus points 5 times out of the 24 games that they play. By modern standards of scoring, that is excellent defense. In this year's playoffs, they have allowed 110 plus points 10 times out of the 20 games they have played so far. That is quite the drop-off. Not to mention, they've been playing teams that aren't even particularly special offensively. Like the Sixers, sure, but also Embiid and Harden didn't show up half of the time. So like, they're just letting anybody score on them. But last night versus Miami, and their 2 wins in general, their defense that allowed Miami to score 120 points a game in the first 3 games has held them to 98 a game in the last 2 games. They started swarming Bam Adebayo whenever he was in the mid-post. They prevented Jimmy from going downhill. They stopped having Derek White be Jimmy's primary defender, which meant more length on him to contest his mid-range game. They got 13 freaking steals in game 5, which was pivotal in getting them a ton of easy fast break opportunities. And honestly, the core of this inconsistency to me is to be blamed, I know, broken record here, but on Jason Tatum. Now, I do want to say before I get into this point that this isn't necessarily that true of the Miami Heat series specifically, because in the first 2 games, he did play pretty good. He didn't get any field goals in the fourth quarter of games 1 or 2, which was not great. He scored 7 points in both of those quarters in total, all of them on free throws, and he was terrible in game 3. So he did some bad things, but in general, I think Jason did enough in the first 2 games that you couldn't really put most of the blame on him. It was really the Celtics at large. But I do think, at least historically with the Boston Celtics, Jason Tatum's inconsistency has bled into overall inconsistency with the team. It's not exactly a hot take to suggest that a team goes as its superstar goes, but I think that's definitely been the case of the Celtics. Jason is more than capable of superstar production, as proved by his 51-point Game 7 versus the Sixers. For the last 2 games, he is averaging basically a 27-point triple-double with 2.5 stocks on 65% true shooting. And by extension, his team at large killed the game, not just him. They tend to go as Tatum goes. If anything, again, not to put all the blame on Jason, this is a little bit of a flaw of the Boston Celtics, that their success is so predicated on what he does, and it can go both ways, of course. And the issue of getting Jason and Jalen to both have good games has been mentioned before. It just seems like it's hard to get everyone on this team on the same page. But the thing is, the rare occasion when you do get everyone on the same page, you entirely see this team can be a championship team. The vision is there. It just is. There's no denying that. It's just a matter of if they're actually going to approach the game mentally in a way that gets them there, because they have the talent. They just do. There's no other thing to add to it. They have the talent. They just need to consistently play at a baseline level that is that of a contender. But unfortunately, it seems like one night they're the 96 Bulls and another they're the Charlotte Bobcats. And in order to win a championship, you generally need a little bit more consistency than that. But like I said, when they put it together, this team looks scary. It's just a matter of whether or not they will. And while I do, again, think that Miami is going to close the series out in Game 6, Boston, if they do just decide we're going to be in 96 Bulls mode for the rest of this series, the circumstances are there for a 3-0 comeback. They are. It's ridiculous. It probably won't happen. But again, I feel real bad if Miami loses Game 6. I just don't think they'd win Game 7. I think that might be wraps. I could be wrong, but yeah, I guess we'll see tomorrow. But that is it. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, and goodbye.